Hi guys, and welcome to my fourth Hibernate tutorial. And in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to actually have a table connected per subclasses. Now what I'm going to do here is I have my student table. I'm going to show my student table with student table, and it has two columns. It has ID and name. Then I have one more table called student address. Alright, and this table has two columns, ID and address, but the ID is the foreign key for the the student table. Alright, so it is the foreign key of the student table. So what I'm saying is my student table and is kind of base table, and my student address table is kind of child table. So this ID it is a foreign key which actually refers to the ID in my student table. Alright, so now let's starting with our program. In this program, what we are going is this application is actually intended to store base and subclass common properties into a table and specify properties into individual table. Now what I do is I start with the Eclipse browser and I create a new project. Alright, and as I showed you, this is a query which I used to create my student address table, where I have ID which is of number type 3 and the foreign key ID, and the reference is student table student ID. So I'm gonna have these two tables, the student table and the student address table, the student table and the student address table, and then I'm going to have a main class as student, and then I'm going to have subclass as student address. Now we can have many more other tables like student age or student personals, like his parents name, father's name, or students marks, those kinds of table, and they all come under student table as subclasses. Now in this example I'm taking only one table, that is student address table, but you may have multiple subclasses in a real-time scenario. You may have connected tables like if you're taking the bank example, you may have various tables like loan and etc. So this is what I'm going to do. I have my student table as a main class, and these is going to be my subclass, and if I had any more tables, then those were also going to be my subclasses. Now going on, let's start the program. Now I'm going to say new, and then I say project new, and new Java project, and then let's name this project. Let's call it table per sub table. Just name some student. Alright, this is the student project, and finish it. Alright, and let's go ahead. We have our student project here, the source. Now since I'm going to use the same database, that is Oracle Database Express Edition, I'm going to use the same Hibernate configuration file. So let's create a new Hibernate map configuration file. Let's say new, and then let's say other, and then I have to go to XML file and they say next, and then I have to say student. I can have any name, but the extension should be configuration for cfg.xml for the configuration file, and then I say finish it. Alright, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy my other XML file, configuration file, and paste the content in my student configuration file. So I'm opening the my last games project, and there I have my configuration file games.cfg.xml, and I'm copying its content. Alright, copy this, and then I'm going to paste it over here. Alright, so this is how my configuration file looks. I have the DTD, I have the Hibernate configuration, I have session factory, and the connection to the database. I have the five properties for connecting to my database, that is driver class, URL, dialect, username, and password. Then I'm setting my auto commit to false, as it is a good practice, and I told in my first tutorial why. Now then I have to displaying the SQL query generator, so that we understand how our program is working. We use property name, these three properties. Then now I've pasted all this. My mapping file I haven't created yet, so I'm going to leave this empty. Now I'm closing my games.xml file, and let's go to package explorer. And then the next thing I need to create are the Pojo classes. So, and this is supposed to be in my source folder. Okay, and it's copying. Alright, I have it in my source folder, and the next thing I need to create is the Pojo classes. Alright, so I'm going to create class, and I'm going to name it as student class with a capital D S, sorry, and finish it. And in my student I have two, first the Pojo class should implement serializable, so like implement and this serializable. Alright, and then the next thing I have two columns in my student table, and I want them to be mapped. So I have first private, private, and it's private ID int ID, and then the private int ID. Then I have private string name and name. Alright, and then I'm supposed to have an empty constructor, so public student. Alright, and then I'm going to have the setter and getter methods. So I click on my I click source, and then I say generate getters and setters, and then I say select all, and then I say okay. Alright, so this is my Pojo class done. Now I have to create the next Pojo class, which is for my next table, or the table with the foreign key. And for that, let's say class, and then name it as student address. Alright, and the student address, and then say finish it. And then in this table too, I have two columns. The first is the ID column, and then the second one is the address column. Alright, so let's say first it has to extend as we remember in this, as we call this the subclass, it has to extend the parent class, and the parent class is going to be student. So let's say it is a student. Alright, and it's going to have two columns again, but since we already have ID column in our in our main class or parent class, I don't need to specify ID in my student address subclass. Alright, so the only the attribute or only column left out for us is the address column, and let's specify that private string, and that's going to be address. Alright guys, and the next thing I have to have is the empty constructor, so that is public, and I say alright, and then I say the empty constructor. And the next thing I have is the setter and getter methods, and so I say on source, and then I go to get generate getter and setters, and I say select all, and I say okay. So this is my student address class. Now the third thing remaining in our program is the mapping file. So let's create a new mapping file, and let's say new other, and let's type here XML file. It's already open, so next, and then the name is going to be student dot any name, that is student dot hibernate mapping hbm dot xml, and then I say finish it. And now I have my mapping file, and for creating the mapping file I need to copy the DTD. So instead of opening the folder and looking in my Hibernate 3.5.6 final distribution folder, I'll copy it from my one of my previous programs, Hibernate mapping file. This is the DTD, this one line of code. So I copy it and then I close my games Hibernate mapping file and I paste it over here, alright, in my student Hibernate mapping file. Now in my configuration file I have to specify the mapping resource, which I kept empty. So let's say it is student.hbm.xml. alright, and then let's start writing our mapping file. So first tab is going to be Hibernate mapping, and then there's the class tab. Alright, and now I have class name, and class name is student. Alright, and then I have table name, and table name is student2 with capital. Just this, it's not necessary to write capitals here, but I'm just doing it for understanding purpose that this belongs to my database. Alright, and then the next thing that we have is to do is in our class tab, in between our class tabs, obviously we have to specify our identification column. Alright, and identifier column, and that's who value is going to be name, and that is obvious, it's ID. And then I'm going to have column, and the column is ID2. Let's type it caps lock, caps. And then I have type, and the type is going to be integer with small I. Alright, and then I have my ID closed, and in that I'll have the generator class. Alright, and that's going to be assigned. Alright, and then my identifier column is complete. Then the next thing I'm going to have is property. Alright, and name is going to be name, and then I'm going to have column. Alright, column is going to be name, and then the type, and the type is going to be string with a small s. Alright, and then let's see. Alright, then the next thing I'm going to have is the subclasses. Now since this table contains the foreign key, I'm going to use this new new tab called joined subclass. Alright, so this is how we actually connect the subclasses which have a foreign key in them, or the tables which are connected together with a foreign key. So I'm going to say subclass, and I'm going to say name equals to student with the capital S, student, and with the capital A, address. Alright, and the next thing I'm going to have is the table. Alright, table, and that is also student address, but case doesn't matters in this side. The student address. Alright, and the next thing we are going to have is the foreign key. We have to specify the foreign key. So see, it shows here clearly, it declares the column name of a foreign key. So if we have tables and we're joining them and they have a foreign key in means like related with them, so we have to use this join subclass, and we have this key tab over here, where we can specify what is our foreign key. So key, and alright, then my key column is going to be ID. Now I'm not specifying name because I have not in my student address Pojo class, I don't have any attribute ID over here. It's only in my main class. That's why I don't have to specify name. There's no name. Alright, name, I don't need to specify no name over here, because the foreign key attribute is taken from my main class or the parent class rather than taking it from my subclass. So this is how we do it. And the next thing I'm going to have is the property for obviously the address, and let's say property name, and name is address, and column is going to be address, and type is going to be s string. Alright, and then this is our mapping file, and this is complete, and I have Now let's write the program logic. So we can write the program logic for either selection or insertion, but since we don't have any data inserted right now in our tables, these are empty tables, I say let's do insertion. Alright, and then let's start with the main. Let's write a class which have our main logic. So click on the source folder, say new, and then say new class, and this class is going to contain main method, and let's call it the final, because this is our last class, final class. Alright, and say finish it, and let's start running the project. Before we run our project, we have to import imports few external jars, the Hibernate jars, so that we can actually work with the Hibernate framework. And so for that, click on our student folder, right click and say properties, and there you have the Java build path and add external jars. Now for the purpose of ease, I have my all jars in a single folder taken from distribution 3.5.6 final version. So I open all my jars and copy them. Alright, and say open. Now one of my jar, that is database jar, is on the desktop, so I say open it and say okay. Alright, and then let's start writing our final class, and this is gonna be easy. The 5 lines of code, configuration, alright, and CFG, that's equals to new configuration. Ooh, this is working a bit slow. And then you have session factory, then you have cfg.configure, and you configure your Hibernate configuration file, and that is student.cfg.xml. alright, and then you have to build a session factory. So session factory equals to cfg.build session factory. Alright, build session factory. Alright, and then you have session object, session factory sf equals to build.session factory, and then you have session s is equal to sf.open session, open session. Alright, and then you have transaction tx equals to session.begin transaction. Alright, and then we have to write our main logic. So let's create, what do I say, student object first, and insert some data into student. The student s, alright, the student st equals to new student. Alright, and then you have st.set id. Alright, set id and set it to 1, and let's set st.set id equals to 2. Alright, sorry, set name. Alright, name equals to George. Alright, and then let's create our, what do I say, subclass object, student address object. So student address, say sa, and equals to new. Right, this is working a bit slow. Alright, student address, and then we have sa.set, we have set id, set name, and set address. Alright, so I say, let's say set id, and let's set id to 1. Alright, and let's set id to 2. We already have one, so let's set id to 2, and sa.set address. Alright, and address is gonna be some address. Alright, city name, and then I have sa.set name equals Brad. Alright, and alright, so this is our program. Now let's save the contents as a save. Right, and then you have to save st, and then you have to save the sa object. Alright, SA. Alright, and then we have to, what do I say, commit this transaction. So let's say tx.commit, and then say s.close. Alright, so this is our program. Now let's run this program and see what do we get. Clear. And the reason why we didn't get it was because, let's check out our student table and run this, and we see we already have 5 ID 5 rows, and we were trying to add record number 1 with ID 1 and with ID 2 which already exists, so that's why it didn't work. And so let's start with record number ID 6, and name is not a problem, and record number, 7. Now let's run this program and check out. Run as Java application and say okay, and errors exist. Sorry, just check out what errors exist. And I have student st, oh sorry, this is mistaken. Alright, so let's run this program and run as Java application and save it. Alright, and then let's check out the console, and this time it should work perfectly, and yes, it's working perfectly. And now let's check our database and select star from student. I run it, and I have 2 new columns with 7th, 6th and 7th one. Right over here is George and Brad. Now let's check our student address table. Alright, and run it, and there we have addresses, as I think we kept both the addresses as same addresses. So we have London, and we didn't set the address for the 6th. I don't know why the address came for it. Okay, we have 5 and 6. Sorry, I added one record before, and this is 5 and 7. And let's insert one more record for showing you guys. Let's insert record number 8, and let's insert record number 9, and this time it's going to be Africa. So let's say, and let's run this program again. Run as Java application and say okay, and check out our run this, and there I have my ID number 9 with value, now with address as Africa. And so this is how we pretty much use the join subclasses. If we have a foreign key, we can specify it as key and column ID. Now the things which we can do here is we can actually update we can update previous for example, I have, let's say, I'm going to show you my student table, and there you can update the address of the tables as it has the foreign key. What I mean to say is, I have my student table here, right? And when I run this query, and you can see I have number of records, and for my first 3 records I don't have any address. So if I want, I can add the address using my second object, but instead of save I have to use the update update method, and then it will update the address. For now there's no address in it. So this is how we work. Thank you for watching this tutorial, and in the next tutorial I'll be going to show you guys about manage one-to-many associations using lists, and also then later I'll be showing you how to manage them using sets, that are the collection objects. And thank you for watching.